Sid and Friends in the morning.
77 WABC.
Well, following breaking news, we have a New Yorker, a former Brooklynite, a Jewish New Yorker, a former U.S. Senator of Minnesota, and Sid Rosenberg's cousin. We have him on the phone now. We have Senator Norm Coleman. Norm Coleman, you were the senator from Minnesota. Tell us, who is this guy that Kamala Harris just picked for vice president?
So first, let me say, you can take the boy out of Brooklyn, but you can't take the Brooklyn out of the boy. So still part of my heart and soul.
Well, you're right, because your cousin is down in Boca Raton underneath the sun right now.
Yeah. Let's see. By the way, he talks about a two-state solution. Minnesota and Michigan. That's what you're going to get. Well, I got to listen. This is really important. This guy's going to try to sell himself like Scranton Joe. Okay, he's the National Guard, rural Minnesota, but this is Bolshevik. This is the most far left radical ticket that this country has ever seen. First of all, Walz was asleep at the wheel. He was AWOL during the George Floyd riots. He let Minneapolis burn. He was nowhere to be
I understand when he watched Michigan and Minnesota burn down when the rioting was going on in Minnesota.
He was asleep at the wheel, did nothing. We had an $18 billion surplus in the state of Minnesota. He burnt through that. They increased the size of government 30%. They raised taxes across the board for everybody. They gave driver's licenses to illegals, free tuition, health care benefits.
And he voted to defund the police?
He did nothing to oppose defunding the police. And by the way, his best buddy is Ilhan Omar. So if my lanceman out there, this is a guy that has supported Omar, supported the squad. So he's going to try to sell himself like Scranton Joe sold himself, and then we saw, how far left that he went. This is going to be the same play. But hopefully people have seen it once, fooled once, shame on you, fooled twice, shame on me. This guy, we have the most far left ticket that you could ever. I'm kind of stunned by it. But Democrats, that's where they're going to go. So
how does Josh Shapiro? I mean, the far left of the Democratic Party threatened the Democratic Party. We're going to burn down Chicago if you pick a Jew.
You know what? Because and I have to say this, and it breaks my because listen, I'm national chairman of the Republican Jewish Coalition, but I want Israel to have support across the partisan lines. I appreciate Steny Hoyer when he supported Israel, but the anti-Semites and the far left control the Democrat Party now. The anti-Semites on the far left kind of vetoed a Jewish potential vice president candidate. Okay, and so that's what you have going on now in the Democrat Party. That's the ascending voices. Walz was the choice of Bernie Sanders and Ilhan Omar to be the next vice president, and so that's what you got. And to me, it's listen. I was the fact that vice president at the end are pretty meaningless, except this is going to be one compounding the other. But having the Jewish vice president, the fact that the far left vetoed. Everyone said the most capable, the most qualified guy was Shapiro because he was a Jew. He doesn't get picked, and so in the end, you have somebody who supports anti-Semites, support Ilhan Omar, who has failed leadership, who cut through an $18 billion surplus, who kind of applauded the most far left agenda that the Democrats were able to kind of pass through with a one-vote majority in the Minnesota Senate last year. So, America, hold on to your wallets,
Yeah. And I got two Brooklyn boys here. I got Curtis Lewa in the studio, another Brooklyn boy, and Judge Richard Weinberg in the studio, another Brooklyn guy. Judge, you have anything for...
Senator, good to talk to you again. I have to tell you something. I'm absolutely stunned that a high-quality person, and I'm the House Democrat here, a highly qualified person like Governor Shapiro is passed over only because he happens to be Jewish, and the far left progressive anti-Semitic wing had veto power over it. It tells you exactly the kind of president Kamala Harris will be. What are your thoughts?
No, without a doubt. I mean, in many ways, again, I wouldn't want him to win. Would have a little pride, and then, listen, Joe Lieberman. If he would have been vice president, I would have been happy for Joe Lieberman. It would have been brutal for the country. But I always had a sense, kind of, listen, I'm as a linesman. It's you want to see kind of Jews, kind of succeed and where it doesn't hurt you. But in this instance, where it's clear that the most qualified, the most able. The person, by the way, probably, could have helped her with a critical state, Pennsylvania, but instead she chose, listen, let's go with Walz. Let's let the anti-Semites kind of dictate who the candidates are. Let's make sure we don't upset the Muslim vote in Michigan. And so, that's in effect kind of the path that they chose, and people should take note of it.
Senator Coleman, 16 years ago, you're in a neck-and-neck race with Al Franken, another liberal, progressive, former comedian there running against you. It's like 42%, I remember. I saw him the other day on 74th Street and Broadway outside of the Fairway supermarket just walking because obviously Gillibrand helped his exit out of the Senate. You're leading the support the Israel wing of the Republican Party now as somebody who lost to him. You had another super liberal Senator Paul Wellstone, unfortunately, was killed in that plane crash along with his wife, daughter, and 5 others. But Minnesota has a history of that kind of extreme liberal progressive thought. Am I right?
Well, I will tell you that Wellstone, God watch over his soul, passed away in a plane crash, was replaced by Walter Mondale. Right, so Walter Mondale, former vice president, and I ended up beating Mondale. But Franken, by the way, I did win on election night, did win when the machines were recounted, lost 9 months later. President Trump always said, hey, Coleman, you know about stealing elections. But let me say, Minnesota has had a history of vice presidents running for president haven't done very, very well. There's the state is actually a little more closely divided. Dems have a 1-seat majority in the Senate, and they won that by, I think, 160 votes. They have a 4-seat majority in the House. Donald Trump could win Minnesota. If the Democrats have more money and are better organized. And so, I think in part they one of the things you pick Walz, and so maybe you think you can do a little better in Minnesota. But by the way, Lieutenant Governor, if he were to win, Minnesota would be governed by the most far-left governor in the history. It's just absolutely stunning. So you're right. There's a progressive tinge in Minnesota. They've been successful in the past, but the state's a little more closely divided. And Donald Trump has a good chance to carry Minnesota.
Senator, give me the scoreboard. You represent the Jewish coalition. And give us the scoreboard, the Jewish vote. How many are still Democrat? How many are Republican?
So listen, we all, for the Brooklyn boys over there, I tell people, not a joke. When I grew up in Brooklyn, I never met either a Republican, by the way, or a Lutheran until I went to college. Okay, there weren't any in my neighborhood. There weren't any in my family. There weren't any in my class. But that's changed, and it's changing. And so, in the past, if we got, I don't know, George Herbert Walker Bush, maybe 20%, something like that, 18%, I should know the numbers. W. Bush, 25, 28%. Donald Trump got 45% of the Jewish vote in Florida. 45%? 45%. Ron DeSantis gets 50% of the Jewish vote. Now, I'm not saying we're going to get that nationally, because in places like California and New York, it's still more challenging.
Is that the Jewish vote that tries to be Protestant?
Someone once said, and I forget who it was, to give him credit, when Moses came down from the mountain, too many of our landsmen think that, he had 2 tablets, right? And too many think on one was written abortion, the other was gay rights, and that's all that matters. And so anything else doesn't matter. But no, it's switching now. So Donald Trump is going to do very, very, very well. And particularly, I would hope that Jews have kind of looked at where the left has gone. Look at the raging anti-Semitism in this country. Look at the Hamas, element in Congress, the Democrat Party, the Squad. Look at the anti-Semitism that is just really kind of battering our kids on colleges and universities across this country. Those are Democrats. Okay, and it's their agenda, And so I would hope that folks, and not hope, but I actually truly believe that you're going to see, significant increase in the Jewish vote for Donald Trump, Jewish vote for Republican. If you say I stand with Israel, then you get a huge applause, and it happened at the convention in Milwaukee. Huge applause line from the crowd, overwhelming support from our representatives in Congress. You can't stand up in a Democrat convention on the floor and say I stand for Israel without fear of being booed and shouted down.
Now,
that's the difference in our parties, and it breaks my heart that we've gotten there, but that's reality.
Now, Senator Norm Coleman, I remember that famous time you stood up in the Senate, and you warned all of us. You said that our allies, the Israeli allies, the Egyptians, allowing weapons to be smuggled into the Gaza at a prolific rate. You were right then. It continued. That's how Hamas was able to arm himself through that border with Egypt. Now that Gaza will be reconfigured in some way, Senator, you're an expert on this. How do we prevent those weapons from being smuggled in again so that in 4 or 5 years we're back to dealing with the same problem?
That's a very, very good question. Israel can't be there forever. And so we're going to have to figure out some way to ensure that Israel doesn't face what they faced before. Never again is now. Never again is not just about the Holocaust. Never again is now. You got the same situation, Kirsten, in Lebanon. The border is supposed to be without Hezbollah. It's supposed to be without weapons. And Israel is facing literally thousands of missiles, aimed at it. There are, I think, 80,000 Israelis who are still displaced, can't get back to their homes in the northern border. And so, I have to say that Israel does have some allies now in the Arab world, some folks who are looking to work with them, that I would hope that they could be counted on, and in part because the enemy is Iran. So the enemy of Israel that's the puppet master. That's the head of the snake. So Hezbollah, Hamas, Houthis, Iranian, the Shia militias in Iraq, they're all controlled by Iran. And Iran is the biggest danger, not just to Israel, but it's a danger to a number of the other Arab states. Their terrorism is crushing the region. And so, I'm hopeful, but you raise it. That's the big question, because Israel cannot allow itself to be in a position where slaughter can happen again.
Well, thank you, Senator Norm Coleman. Nobody would know Governor Walz better than Norm Coleman, who himself transplanted from Brooklyn, Madison High School, Hofstra University, cousin of Sid Rosenberg.
Sid Rosenberg, he just texted me. He'll be back, and he says, hello, cousin, and he'll be back in the studio tomorrow, so I don't have to get up at 4 in the morning.
I take greatest pride in being Sid's cousin. He's a delicious kid, smart as can be, and I'm proud to share blood with him, so that's a good thing.
Well, thank you so much,
Senator.
Thank you.
Good enough. Thank you.